friend,
Jennifer Guskin,
and we need your help. We are right now working on advocacy for combating human trafficking, and here's why. So we'll give you a little bit of background of our story and why we're doing what we're doing.
I was adopted as an infant by a couple who sold me throughout my childhood. I have been to Epstein Island and on multiple Lolita Express types of flights as a child. After I went public, Child Protective Services opened a substance-exposed newborn case, even though all tests came back negative, and they told me that if I wouldn't stop posting on social media, I would never see my daughter again. I started to connect how I was adopted as an infant and then sold throughout my childhood, how many other children who have been through the adoption, foster, and CPS pipelines have also been trafficked to Epstein's Elk.
And as many of you guys know already, based on the work that we do at the Karis Project, I'm an American Indian born in Canada under the Jay Treaty. My father and I were exposed in the improper contagion mitigation for the COVID pandemic in early 2020. As a result of this, I lost everything: a house, cars, corporate assets, jobs. Bank accounts were shut down in Canada, and I fled to the US as an American Indian, fully documented, and was trafficked by rogue agents in ICE and other agents in the government, and forced to live with single American men. I was even imprisoned for 7 months initially, and then trafficked throughout the states. Put on full surveillance tracking and wasn't allowed to leave the city, house, or state without permission, or work without permission. And that happened for many years, and I was on and off the streets because of that, and in and out of shelters. And that is just a small example of what many go through in this trafficking system, be it the family courts or otherwise. So that's why the Karis Project will be going to DC to speak with representatives and do live reporting. We're also going to be in contact with other families who are dealing with human trafficking, and through the CPS courts or through any other means, lesser versions of trafficking, and doing reporting on them live and otherwise. We will also be working on, we ultimately want to shine light on what's going on with the trafficking here in the US. And we also want to meet with various agencies in DC, and we'll be going back and forth for training sessions and other things so that we can be better equipped to help people deal with resolving some of the issues that we're seeing. We will also be putting forth petitions in government to help people get justice, and that's something that we have been working on already so far. We have some petitions that have recently been filed in the state of Colorado, Michigan, Texas, and Arizona, and we will be continuing.
But we can't do this on our own. We will be traveling to events and training courses, as well as DC on a consistent basis. We also have to get acceptable equipment, such as computers, cameras, interview gear, etc. There will be other miscellaneous costs that would also be like gas, food, and rooms if necessary.
So that is why we are working towards combating human trafficking, and that is exactly why we need your help. We cannot do this alone, and most what the Karis Project does is on its own dime. And so we do love and appreciate each and every one of you that support us and all the work that we do. As many of you know, we also live stream on Lindell TV every day. And everything we do, like I said, is on our own dime. So we appreciate all the love and support and all the people who do donate. And we would very much love and appreciate that still. Thank you everybody for your time and considerations. And thank you for all the support. And we will catch you guys in the next one, and hopefully we might see you guys in the future and come across you and maybe be able to do some great things together.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Karis Project podcast. Today we have some interesting stuff, and obviously here with our host, Tasha, and our guest host, Stephanie. We're Stephanie Henson. We're just going to kind of talk a little bit about some stuff going on with going down to Washington. So, Keisha, you're the one who was down in Washington, so you want to tell us a little bit about your experience in Washington before we start getting into the clips.
Hello everybody. How's it going? It's great that we have Stephanie again joining us today. Yeah, as you guys know, I was just down in Washington there with Jen. We went and shared our story and at a rally uh, with the Foster Forward Project, but we also submitted some papers to Rand Paul's office with some of the, you know, same information of stuff that we were submitting to, you know, Texas State House, Colorado, Michigan, and Arizona. Same information from that petition. Um, and we were able to meet with other survivors and things like that. And we all, quite a few of us, not all of us, but we shared our story at a rally, and we would go to the different legislators and talk to them about what can be done to resolve some of these issues that we're seeing across the board, some touching, what was going on with the pandemic, with families in the family court systems, the undocumented immigrants that are coming across, and parents that were losing their rights, and also people who have been losing their licenses, like lawyers and stuff like that, or people who are losing their jobs due to certain levels of persecution. Yeah, so that's what we were doing. But Jen and I, we we kind of did a little bit of both, because the Family Forward Project is something else. But we joined them for some of their meetings, and we also went to deliver that to Rand Paul. We got to record it, and Jen got to share her story as well as a survivor of Epstein's Island, and they seemed pretty receptive, which was nice, and said that they would get the information to Rand Paul as well. So that was awesome.
All right. So we're going to bring up a couple of clips here. One we've seen before, but this one is short and it sets the stage. And then we're going to listen to something that Steve Bannon said before we start getting into some of the other clips. So let's just keep this in mind, especially the guys watching in the States, as to what your neighbors in the North are like.
I want to be very clear. We can prove that every federal government, from Mr. Mulroney to Mr. Trudeau, have been compromised by agents of the Communist China. Every government were informed at one point or another. Every government choose to ignore CISA's warning, either by negligence, self-interest, or partisanship. Every government were infiltrated by agents of influence acting on behalf of the Chinese government, and we knew who they were.
That's crazy. That's crazy. We talked about this the other day. Yeah,
Y-
that's crazy.
So this is the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. This is like the equivalent of the CIA coming out and telling you that every agent, every government for like since Reagan and Bush years were compromised
I believe that. I
by China.
100% believe. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who's. They say it's China, but I feel like our news and our media always puts a name on something. I think it's everybody
Yeah.
working together. It's all of us who complied. It's all the people who complied with whoever came in making these laws and rules over our bodies, the war on drugs, the war on people, all of it, the biological weapons in the hospitals with the vaccines, all of it. Like, they were all involved. We have all complied to this system. So we can't really blame a Chinese government. We have to blame ourselves and what we've allowed to happen. And
But
we have to stop to this.
but the CIA hasn't come out to Congress and said this. But in the Canadian Parliament, the equivalent of
Which
the
is like
CIA
in Congress. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
equivalent have come out and said this, and
Yes.
people are just like, let's just go vote for the
Okay.
same people.
Let's say people.
Right?
I was
Like,
in New York. I was in New York at a rally with Randy, and we were, I drove in for the day. I went to church, and then later that day we went down for the rally, and there were there were Canadians, and they were constantly saying, "Oh no, we don't have Justin Trudeau in anymore. We've got Mark Carney, and he's better." I'm like, but isn't like, are you kidding? They just with what? Are you kidding? Like, are you really? It's like the same stuff, different pile. It's like poison or poison. It's like which way do you want to die today? And it's literally the exact same vial of poison. They're so, it's crazy how indoctrinated they are, because you couldn't come out in, I don't know, maybe you could come out in Congress today now and say, oh, this is what's going on, and everybody would just be like, oh, okay, well, sucks to suck, it is what it is, I guess we're all right. But I don't think that would be the same case here in the United States. They would not come out in Congress and say something like that and people just be a-okay with it. They would lose their mind.
Yes.
Honestly, being in America, I don't think so. I think people are like, oh, what do we do about it? Like they wouldn't know what to do. They would just hear it, and it would just be news that just sticks. That's
But
it.
they would
But-
put up a
People
stink. They would put up more of a stink.
I'm telling you right now, it's worse in Canada. It is worse.
Yes.
Like, I watched the reaction in the States, and yes, they have some compliance, but the level of anger and hostility that you see from Americans that are like getting angry about what's going on, you don't see the same level with Canadians. You don't. They're
No.
just like
No.
not even
They are
close.
brainwashed. They are completely brainwashed. The Canadian
But
government
that's why
comes
I
out and
don't
says,
in America.
What?
no, it's not.
Honestly,
It's not the same.
I know,
It's not- I'm
I know
telling
what you mean.
it's not the same.
I know, but I've been at the rallies. I've been at the rallies where I've seen both sides kind of go at it. And here's they have us so, I see it on my Facebook, I see it in my social media accounts, I see it through real people that I actually know and my networks and stuff. People are caring less about politics these days, but you have some people who are caring too much, where they're so divided. One person's really left and one person's really white or right, and they're both fighting each other. They don't have zero clue what's going on. They don't even pay attention. They're more just looking at their own sides of the political spectrum, and it's completely divided right now. Where you do see people right out marching and protesting and gathering up for their beliefs, but these guys over here also are too, and they're like, and the thing is, we all want the same thing for people, but we just can't figure out how to get along and talk about what we want is best for everybody, you know?
Yeah, and I see that as well. I see that. And the difference is that in Canada, they've been so indoctrinated with communism that they don't even want that different, what you're talking about, how the two people are coming with the difference.
Yeah.
They don't want that difference. They want the communism. They've been living under communism for so long, and they've come out and said in Parliament that they have confirmed that for the last more than 20 years, almost more than 30 years, that people have been they've been involved in the communism directly, and they've been doing this, that our society is completely like, they're cooked. They don't even know what liberty is anymore.
Let's listen to what Steve Bannon has to say here, because he talks about this. So let's listen to a clip from him.
Fleet, bring it. He's down in He's down in Southeast Asia today, around the littoral nations of the South China Sea, and he's not cutting deals, he's imposing deals. He's saying, here's what you're going to take. If you don't like it, that's your problem. This is kind of our terrain, because we're Imperial Japan. And he's doing the same thing on India and up there in the border. He's getting a border conflict now with Pakistan. Geopolitically, on his chessboard, he is securing East Asia and Southeast Asia to say, hey, United States and your 3-island chain in vast Pacific, I see what you're doing geopolitically. I'll see you and I'll raise you one. I will basically consolidate East Asia and Southeast Asia, so I will take that part of the Eurasian landmass, and then let's see what tough guys you are. I'm in Brazil, I'm in Central America, and guess what? The cartels are still my partner, and I understand the tariffs have cut fentanyl by 50%, and I understand you say you're going to come down with kinetic forces and blow these guys out of the water, but guess what? They're still my partners, and I think we're doing pretty good, because with the weakness in Canada, and Canada is one of the most infiltrated nations on this earth by the Chinese Communist Party, given what Castro's son did and allowed them to do over the last 20 years, they're feeling pretty good. Yeah, I think we got the United States exactly what we want. Now, we have every powerful tool in the toolbox, because they don't exist unless they have, number one, access to our capital, both debt and equity. Okay? Number two, the ability to take our technology. And have you heard anybody but War Room screaming about the $30 trillion? Because he's talking about deficits of the $36 trillion in debt we have, and the $2 trillion of deficits every year. We have $25 trillion of deficit, of a trade deficit, 18 trillion just since our elites brought China into the game, $18 trillion just with China. Oh, by the way, intellectual property, $30 trillion. Okay? And do you have anybody in Silicon Valley?
Of course, I'm talking to myself again. We got so much interference with China, and China's now taking is disadvantaging the United States.
Yes.
Canada is the greatest national security threat to the United States outside of the United States because you've got a vassal state of China right north of you that is so far controlled by China. People were talking about some of the Canadian journalists on X today that they are refusing to go the distance to tell the truth about China and Canada's complicity with China. And this is a problem because no one else is reporting the goods on China. They're not.
Nope.
And we're going to play a little bit of a lengthy clip here, but this is what we talked about on Steve Stern's election integrity call. And I want people to see this and to share this to understand what exactly is going on and the ramifications to the United States of America based on what was said here in this information, in this call.
So the next person we have is going to be Dale Richardson. Dale's a good friend of mine. He's in Canada. And, we know we got all these tariffs going back and forth, and everybody's saying, the Canadians don't like us. We don't like the Canadians. We love the Canadians. Dale Richardson, his daughter lives in, I think, Arizona now. Dale, you'll have to let me know. Dale, come on down. We appreciate you coming all the way in from Canada.
All right. Thank you, Steve, for having me. She's just outside of DC right now, doing some work over there. Raj, are you able to pull up the slides, or do you need me to?
Yes, I can do that. Stand by.
Okay.
I should have had that ready to go. Give me just 30 seconds if you want to keep talking. I'll have that video in 30 seconds.
Yeah, so this is going to kind of show how why Biden pardoned Fauci and how COVID was tied to this. And it starts in Canada because the guy we're going to see, his name is Maxime Bernier. They used election fraud to deprive him of the election because he's got policies similar to Trump, and they needed to forward what I'm going to show you now, which impacted the 2020 election. You able to have that up now or not yet?
Yes. So this is a Karis report video that we're going to play. Stand by. Stand by. Great, Dale. Just confirm this is the video you want me to play?
Yes, this is the first one. Yes, this is the one with Maxime.
So was not the candidate of the establishment. So what they did the night of the election, and you can see the video about that, they said, we have a winner. The winner is Andrew Scheer, 51%, Bernier, 49%, and we destroyed the ballots. So just, a couple of hours after the vote, they destroyed the ballot. And the day after, in the Global Mail, the big newspaper in Canada, they were saying that at that time we were about 240,000 members. And the Global Mail was saying, they had 250,000 votes. So, and they said that, 250,000 people voted, but we had 240,000 members. So they had to create 10,000 votes to be sure that, I won't win. And they did it. They cheated.
So now when we get to the I guess we'll go to the first slide there, because it shows how Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance was getting money from the NIH and also from the USAID. And so they were funding this to go ahead and put together the pathogen in Wuhan. Do we have the slides up, or do you want me?
So here's what I've got so far. I have the video that I played.
Okay.
I can see your screen. C19
right.
election fraud. Go ahead.
All right. So this next slide here, this is showing what I was talking about with the EcoHealth Alliance and the USAID and how they were funded to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. What people don't realize is that here in Canada, we had a Chinese scientist that was connected to the Chinese army and so forth here at the Winnipeg Biolab, and they were taking level 4 pathogens, like Nipah virus was one of them, they were sending over to Wuhan. And through the documentation that they had in parliamentary hearings here in Canada and also with the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. They showed that she did have connections to the Wuhan Institute of Virology and so forth, and that was working with mRNA technology, and this was done at the same time that they were doing this over there in Wuhan. And so then eventually the both the CDC and the WHO knew the lockdowns and all these things did not work. This is from 2014. They knew that they had to do this in order to go ahead and do what they did in 2020. And now I have a book here called COVID-19 and Negligent Engineering Practices. Will this kill people? This explains how they accomplished this, how they effectively spread the pathogens in order to do what they did. And so this was a lot of crime. Here I have on this next slide, this demonstrates the hierarchy controls that tells you engineering is the first step when you're coming towards getting rid of a pathogen. But they effectively did this wrong, and the CDC was responsible for this, which allowed them to go down to do all these other changes. So you have the crimes there that are outlined. This should have been shut down in 2020 when I brought this forward in Canada. And the doctor here, Dr. John Conley, he was also on the steering committee in the WHO to make sure that they suppressed the aerosol spread so that they could continue the agenda. So now we go over here, you have the NIH that they were confirming that COVID-19 was not naturally occurring. And the paper that I have over there, it demonstrates that the Nipah virus sequencing that came from the Winnipeg biolab that was taken by that Chinese doctor was put together in Wuhan with Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance. This is why Dr. Fauci was pardoned, because he had knowledge that the Canadians were taking a level 4 pathogen to a level 2 lab, knowing fully well that it would escape in order to do what they did to take out Trump. Right? And so Canada also identified that there was a biological threat and that China had a strong possibility of using pathogens to push their geopolitical agenda, which is exactly what happened in 2020. And they also identified the threats through one of the reports by the GAO in the United States as well. CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, identified that Canada was a high priority target for foreign interference because of its relationship to the United States. And Canada is heavily controlled by China. It's common knowledge that there are MPs right now in the House of Commons in Canada that are under Chinese control, but they won't do anything about it. And this is one of the reasons why, because they needed to conceal what was going on to help to create the circumstances for the election fraud. Canada actually also mentions that the 2020 election was a source of where there could be potential Chinese interference. So we were well aware of this and said nothing, did not share it with anybody, and it's supposed to be allies. Now we have this documentation that demonstrates that the Democratic Party are tied to the biological weapons program. And I have this further on. If you go to follow me at DGS Richardson on X, you'll be able to see some of the threads. I actually talked about this with John Goodman in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, where I outlined this and how this is tied together. And then finally, the NIH puts out a paper that talks about the changes that were made to the elections as a result of COVID. The same COVID that they funded to be released with Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance with the health of the Chinese, which is 100% treasonous activity. And then they go ahead, and this last chart will demonstrate right here all of the different changes. They called it election flexibility, but you can see on this chart here, all of these changes that were made as a result of that COVID were done off the backs of treasonous activity. This is something that needs to be brought forward, because they have used this pathogen expressly to interfere with the 2020 election. And everything that is tied to this is now tied to what they did here, because that created the circumstances for a massive election fraud in the United States and also subsequent frauds here in Canada, because they have to maintain a China-controlled government to suppress this so that they can continue with this agenda in both of our countries.
That was
Yes. And so this is what they should be reporting here out of Canada, because this is like, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much stuff, and they talk about this flippantly in our parliament and put this information out, and nobody's doing anything. Nobody's saying anything. Everybody is.
It just goes back to nobody knows. It just goes back to nobody knows what to do. When you hear information, people freeze, and it's like they just want to continue just living in their jobs and just doing what's easy for them because they don't know how to make a change. They don't know what to do. You could tell them that the sky is falling, and they're like, "Oh, well, it is what it is." You know what I mean? Like, I don't. What do we do when you hear this information? Like, what are people supposed to do when they hear that information?
Well, there's a lot that can be done, and we've been like laying out a lot of what can be done. But the whole point is the people that have possession and know the knowledge of this information. Nobody in Canada said what I said. Nobody in Canada was going to put those connections in there, because Canada was instrumental in the interference in 2020, because without those pathogens that they sent over there, they would have not been able to do this. And they brought somebody who was like a major general in the Chinese army that came here to get pathogens that they had no ability to get. And there was issues with the containment. I was looking at a ton of papers, and the engineering controls that they had. The engineering controls is when they go and work on those pathogens in all of those level 4 labs, even in the States or whatever else like that, that's what keeps them from getting killed. Right? Like, if they don't have proper engineering controls, they're all going to die. Right?
Yeah.
So the same thing that keeps them safe, they refuse to give to the people. Right? They wanted that pathogen to spread, and it was across the board. This is 100% deliberate. It is impossible for it to be, it was incompetence. No, because engineering don't work that way. This is one of the reasons why Keisha and I have gotten so much suppression, because we told the truth where everybody else was too much of a coward to tell it. Right?
Yeah.
And I'll actually bring up one guy here, and his name is let me pull it up here. But actually, let's take a short break while I'm pulling that up, and we will hear from Mike Lindell, the Pillow Man, for his new promotion that he has today.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
Yeah, so for the new special, you can go to mypillow.com/Karis or call 800-845-2942. Use the promo code Karis. You'll get all the good stuff that he talked about there. So we'll kind of get back to that, and all the MyPillow products, beds, bath sheets, like bed sheets, bath towels, right? Not bath sheets. I got it crossed up.
Have you tried those things? Have you tried those Rev 7s? Are they good?
No, this just came today. Right.
Okay, because I've never seen this before. I was wondering how long they've been out. But that's
5 minutes before we started this, I got that. So, yeah.
Oh.
So, so try it out. See if you like it. If not, whenever I have a chance, I'll let you guys know. But at the end of the day, we're looking at a situation where we're having a lot of issues and not getting the correct stuff. And I'm going to pull up this clip, and this is a guy. His name is Sam Cooper. He's a reporter in Canada. Talks a lot about the foreign interference and so forth, but he too himself won't talk all the way about the connections. But listen what happened to him when he went and talked about this.
I always ask my fellow colleagues in journalism, you as an investigative reporter, were you ever tried to be silenced about your reporting?
I was, and this is a story I'll tell you that really troubles me. In June 2023, after I broke the international stories of China's election interference in Canada, I was asked to testify in Canada's Parliament about my knowledge of how politicians that criticize China in Canada are targeted in Chinese nefarious operations. So I testified, Daniela. I gave my evidence as a Canadian citizen. 2 days later, an RCMP National Security Unit knocked on my door of my home. I was about to go out to dinner with a family member. They said, no, we need to talk to you. We have learned of a serious threat to a Canadian investigative reporter in relation to their reporting on China. Okay, this is 2 days after I fulfilled my duty as a citizen and said some pretty serious things in evidence in Canada's Parliament. So obviously I haven't been silenced, but my life has been altered. I had to take security measures. I live under certain threats, and I'll tell you, it's not just of the violent type, it's legal threats. How has it changed me? I just believe this is so important, not only for Canada, but I plan to report and have reported for the Bureau on these same issues in the United States. And, to be honest, Daniela, it hurts me to say it, but it's made my opinion of Canada's goodness as a state change since I received those warnings. It's made me think that, like a lot of Canadians that have the capacity, do I need to think about getting closer to being, involved in American business? Do I need to run my business from Canada if I'm not protected here?
So that man got threatened for talking about that, right? Now
Yeah.
you see the
A lot of
issue.
people-
What?
You see a lot of people are receiving retaliation. I know when I was doing MAGA Nationwide, I had death threats from political groups because of the things I was sharing about the corruption I was seeing within the groups and who was funding them and whatever else. And so it's one of those things. I'm happy as his duty. He definitely spoke up, and you got to just, take one for the team and just hope that you're safe.
Yes, but he won't go the distance. He got somebody coming there and telling him that he was threatened and so forth, right, in 2019. Now let's fast forward to 2020 with the stuff that I brought out. You saw what it was connected to, and this was their first response.
For what? This is an illegal warrant.
Oh, sorry.
No, it is not.
This
is a lie. This is a lie.
Sidewalk?
This is a lie. You were stopping me from doing the
back up here.
What is the reason for the arrest? What is the reason for the arrest?
You will not. Do not
What is
arrest.
the
This is not a
reason?
lawful arrest.
What is the reason
not
for
a
the
lawful
arrest?
Do not.
What is the reason for
You are
the
not.
arrest?
Yes, you are. This is an
What
unlawful
is the
arrest.
reason for the
Pursuant to
arrest?
269.1.
What is the reason for what is the reason?
I've already applied to
What
your
is the reason? What is the reason?
Do not touch it.
What is
Do
the
not
reason
touch
for
it.
the arrest?
You see this wickedness?
What is the reason? What
God is
is
going
the
to judge you
reason for
today.
the arrest?
You will not live. Father in heaven, I ask of you this day to pour out your spirit upon your children. Tomorrow I ask of you this day to slay the servants of Baal.
What
Do
is
not
the
allow
reason?
them to touch her.
What is
No.
the reason? What is the reason?
I ask of you this day.
What is the reason? You did not state the reason for the arrest.
Tell me the law. Tell me the warrant. Tell me the warrant.
What is the reason?
Give me your arm. Give me your arm now. Give me your arm. You will not.
What is the reason? Stop!
We'll explain it to
Stop!
You're resisting arrest and detention.
No, what is the reason for the arrest?
The public health order.
No, it's not. That's not what it says. That's not what it says. That is not what the public.
So
It's traumatizing.
yeah, so that tells you how serious what we brought forward was, even in 2020, we didn't have all that information, but now we have the information with Peter Daszak and what the Dr. Chu and everything, all of this stuff, and tied it all together and showed that the sequencing that they sent over from the Nipah virus, that Dr. Chu sent over from the Winnipeg National Microbiology Lab out to Wuhan, was now found in spike proteins in patients that was sequenced at Wuhan. They were sequencing something in a level 2 lab, which they had no ability to contain it because you require, for the Bangladesh strain of the Nipah virus, a level 4 containment. They didn't put it there, and they had problems with their labs. You were going to get a leak. There was no way that you would not get a leak because you did not have the proper containment. When you're in basically level 4 containment, you're like wearing essentially like a spacesuit, like a hazmat suit, with a separate ventilation that's separate from the air in the room. You're not doing that in level 2. Level 2 is you're wearing like a lab coat, glasses, and you have a little cabinet that sucks the air back in, and that's it. That's not proper containment. So when they put that into those conditions, that was spreading a leak. And now that information is out, and this is what my daughter ended up delivering, and I'll play the clip of her going to Senator Rand Paul's office to bring this information in. Let me just get this up here, and people can understand what's going on now.
So guys, we have these documents here outlining national security risks. We're going to be giving them to Ron Paul's office, which is SR 295, I think.
I have to double check because the walls aren't labeled.
That's fine. We'll pop our head in and ask, but pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
That's funny because today is also
Antifa's Day of Rage or whatever.
The
door's already open? Shit. And nobody's here.
Hello?
Excuse us. That is really weird.
No. I can take that for you. Is it something to pass on to Sarah?
Yeah, to Ron.
Legislative?
Yeah, because so just to explain, so this kind of information will give like a lot of context also to what's going on with the stuff with Peter Daszak. So, my dad, he's an engineer, technologist, bachelor in technology, and he made all these documents outlining how the young farmer community communication for the pandemic was used for human trafficking, election interference, treating in Canada and the US, and bioterrorism, and the ways that they were doing HVAC systems, things like that. Trump actually talked about the tweets last night. This has a lot of information surrounding like Canada and China and things like that. So I also have which I had influence on the share.
Okay.
And there's a huge I don't know if you want to. We're with Lindell's Karis Project.
Okay.
So that we went on there, but I wanted to make sure that these got to Rand Paul because I think it would be very useful for him.
Yeah.
It's a national security concern.
Yeah.
So if gets him like expeditiously, that'd be great because it's something that Trump and he was like eating it.
Yeah, and can I put this in there as well? Just,
Yeah.
And then you can just sit this right here.
Just a, yeah. And I'll just cover that for you.
Awesome.
So, not only did we report that, but Keisha took that documentation, the evidence, to Senator Rand Paul in Washington, D.C., right? Like, this is the kind of work that we're doing that these guys are not doing. And this is like taking a lot of risk, because you can't sit down and say that now that putting that information in there and that people are seeing that information is gone to where it needs to go, that there's not going to be pushback, because this is like implicating two governments, right? Like Canada and the United States.
But it goes back to, here's what I feel like, and just the research I've done there is some type of new world order that is taking place worldwide. It's not just Canada, America. I have friends from doing my political stuff. I have friends over in Europe as well who are experiencing a lot of the same things that we're seeing in Canada and we're seeing in America, where I feel like this is a worldwide problem that's happening. It's happening through control, mind manipulation through religion. It's happening through the medical institutions and the biological weapons of vaccines. It's happening through our school system, the indoctrination of humans into this system that forces us to be slaves into a system. Every country is going through this. It's not, again, not just America, not just Canada. It's in Europe. It's in Australia. You're seeing people sticking up for their rights and saying enough is enough. We don't agree with this. You're seeing kids being kidnapped from their homes by CPS and DCF for all the medical stuff. So I mean, this issue goes further than the COVID thing. It goes bigger to it's all over the world. The WHO, the World Health Organization, all of it. They are all a part of some type of like corrupted takeover over people's minds and lives.
Yes, and this is one of the things that is outlined in that is demonstrating is that there's treasonous activity. COVID was what was allowing it to go in to mega overdrive. This was necessary in order for them to implement this inside of the world. But the most important place to get on planet Earth is the United States because of the United States Constitution. United States Constitution was what?
It doesn't. Our Constitution doesn't matter right now.
That's,
I'm witnessing that first. I'm witnessing that firsthand in the county. They don't care.
The reason why the Constitution doesn't matter is because the people, especially in the United States, have been dumbed down to not understand how the Constitution works. Now the people need to be. No,
it's the judges.
Forget about the judges. The judges are doing what they're doing because the people don't understand how to properly apply the Constitution so they can deal with the problem of the judges. Because they're going to the judges that are being protected by the elected officials where the people have the most access, and the people are allowing the elected officials to not take the judges out of their positions. And this is the biggest problem why that we're at where we're at. People want to play the game that they were taught that was rigged, rather than looking at the Constitution and what does it do, right? And people are not looking at that. People understand outside of the United States how important that U.S. Constitution is to freedom. People in the United States, they don't see the level of what everybody else sees because we all wish that we had that Constitution because we would have a lot more defenses towards our own government, but we don't. And so this is the problem. But the United States is the benchmark for liberty in the world. This is without a shadow of a doubt. And I guess sometimes when you grow up in some places, you do sometimes start to take things for granted. Like we did it here in Canada. We don't have the Constitution, but there's certain things that we did take for granted. And this is where we have to start going back to where we were at, because if the United States goes down and Canada turns into China, it substantially increases the chances of the United States going down. So this is where Canada is a beachhead and the United States is the final object. And we need to stop this here to preserve liberty everywhere else. Because if Canada gets overrun by China, it makes it a lot more difficult than it is already now for the United States as a whole. Right? Go ahead, Keisha.
Yeah, and I've gone to court proceedings in Canada where they will just straight up not let you do anything. They won't accept your evidence and they won't let you speak, and they'll do everything like off the record. You have no chance in hell in Canada in court. I've gone to court here in the US.
Or arrest you before you can get inside the car.
Before you get inside the court, so you can't even go in the court like they did to us that day. I've gone into court to testify as witness for people. I've been in court in the US for other things. And not like I have any criminal record in any country in the world, but it doesn't matter. But I've gone into court and judges have tried to violate my rights. And I have straight up called the police on them in the court and got and reported them right there in the court, to the point where they're like, turn off the record. And they got out and they left. They got up, everyone, and left. and they tried to use sheriffs against me. I called the police. Even in the federal district court, when you try to file something, I've had them try to use, ICE against me, and I had to call the police from the federal landline. In America, you can assert your rights. People have told me in the justice system they've never seen anybody weaponize Native American rights the way that I have with my tribal citizenship. When you know your rights in America as an American citizen or a Native, whatever you are, nobody can do to you what they are doing to you in Canada. It is a completely different thing. You can know your rights in Canada and they'll say, sorry, sucks to suck. We're all out of mercy today. You're coming with me. And that's just the end of it. And you might not see your family ever again because they've actually offed you somewhere. This is the difference entirely between Canada and the United States, and where people will actually make a stink in the United States, people in Canada will try to suppress you and actually take you out for trying to even make a stink about it. You can't even get to the point of maybe let's try to get justice. All of that's out the door. So this is the difference entirely. And I've lived in both countries, and I've been in the US the last 5 years now, and I've been all over the states. I've not just been in one. I've been all over the states because I've been trafficked, and I've dealt with various law enforcements across the board. And I have seen an extreme difference night and day between the way that they operate when you understand your rights versus in Canada, regardless.
Yeah, I just want to pull up, since you went to Rand Paul's office, I want to pull up a clip of Senator Rand Paul, talking about what Justin Trudeau did. And this is kind of to give you an idea of who you have to the north of you guys. And like, people who are watching this, share this, because this information everybody needs to know. Every person in America should know what is going on here. And it's people in Canada should know, but especially the people in the United States.
Continued use of this emergency. Emergency powers were not the type of rule our founders anticipated for our country. The other name for emergency rule is martial law. It's something all of us should object to and say that should only happen in an exceptional case, be very limited, and have the ability of Congress to overturn. If anyone doubts that emergency powers can be abused, just look to Canada. As Jean Healy of Cato Institute wrote, America's neighbor to the north offers a cautionary tale about the risks that broad emergency powers could be turned inward against political dissent. In early 2022, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faced a mass protest against COVID-19 restrictions, in which Canadian truckers obstructed key border crossings and effectively shut down the capital city with their rigs. Instead of simply clearing out protesters and punishing them via conventional legal means, Trudeau invoked emergency powers broad enough to permit the financial unpersoning of anyone participating in the protest. He went to their bank accounts and took their money. When people raised money voluntarily through crowd financing to help these truckers, he stole that money as well through martial rule. Without any rule of law, he took the money. No transaction with the protesters. He took their money. People were locked up under martial law. Canada's 1988 Emergencies Act gave the Trudeau government staggering powers to subject individual protesters to debanking without due process. This is the danger of presidential power, of excessive presidential power. It isn't about any individual president. It's about all presidents of either party, because men and women will succumb to the desire for power. It's inherent in all. That's why we must have checks and balances. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland put it this way in describing Trudeau's martial law. As of February 2022, and a warning to the truckers, as of today, a bank or a financial service provider will be able to immediately freeze or suspend an account without a court order. The government of Canada, essentially Trudeau, could freeze a bank account without a court order, without due process of law. We are today serving notice. If your truck is being used in these protests, your corporate accounts will be frozen. The insurance on your vehicle will be suspended. Send your trailers home. And while native-born Americans may think that emergency powers are to be used to target others, I would venture to guess that the Canadian truckers protesting COVID-era mandates didn't expect that their government would treat them as foreign adversaries and freeze their accounts. If it can happen in Canada, it can happen in the U.S.
And I want to say this very clearly. The people that suppressed this evidence over the last few years, they're the reason why Biden was able to get away with pardoning Fauci. This was the reason why Peter Daszak and all these people were able to waltz free, because without having the evidence of what was going on in Canada that was then being done in conjunction with what was going on in Wuhan, because Fauci even talked about what was going on at the Winnipeg lab in 2020 with the reports coming out of there, and they suppressed that. If that came out and they knew what was going on, and then that Bangladesh strain that was sent from Winnipeg going into the spike proteins that were sequenced at Wuhan, this would be a completely different conversation. Those people would be getting prosecuted for treason, right? This is something that every person needs to know, because all of these last few years would have been radically different had this thing come out and been properly brought forth to the people that were able to deal with this. Because then when they know for certainty, because just the engineering controls alone, if they know how to contain the diseases inside of those level 4 labs, they know how to use engineering controls to mitigate the disease in other places, because they're using the same HVAC system, the same filtration, dilution, filtration, and destruction, which they did not give to the people. This was intentional, 100%. And now the people have to use the constitutional processes. This is why we went with the petitions for redress of grievances under your First Amendment right, because go back and read your Declaration of Independence. What was the last thing that they said before they outlined the causes that impelled separation? Our humble petitions were met with repeated injury. That was the last thing before they went to war. This is why they put the petition for redress of grievances in the First Amendment, because you have the right to instruct your government and not ask. This is like your Second Amendment right, that you cannot infringe it. It's your right, your God-given right. And you have a God-given right to your republic. Because what does that Constitution start with? We the people. We the people need to make sure that you go ahead and deal with the people, pressure the government to start dealing with those judges. This is where they can start using clauses like Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, because if the states, especially in Tina Peters' case, the state judges aren't following the Constitution. She got denied her petition for redress of grievances to the Colorado State House, so they jailed her. This is cases where that can be used. And when other states are concealing treason for their benefit and a whole bunch of other crimes, right? That's the way the Constitution was designed to be used, but the people need to start getting up and doing something for themselves, right? Yeah. Don't look back on what your ancestors did. You got to look at what you're doing now, because your ancestors would be looking at you right now going, what is going on? Because they said it for them and their posterity. Start acting like the posterity of the Americans, because the world needs you. I'll put that there, and I'll close here with a prayer, and I'll give Keisha, give you your final thoughts and what from your Washington experience. All right. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, grace, and mercy. We thank you for the hope that you have given us this day. And Lord, I ask of you today to bring the men and the women together to rebuild their families, their churches, their community, and their nation, that we can help to have some of a future for our children is our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Dad, for the prayer as always. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us. Always great having you on. Yeah, guys, it was great what we're able to go out and do in Washington, but it's also evident that we need more people that are going to come out and share the truth and actually do actionable things that is going to make a difference. In matter of fact, the Karis Project is the only Canadian media outlet that's been doing this like this. There's not been any other. And as you've seen, based on the persecution we've received, why it's been done. This is also evident why men need to be the ones standing up and doing things and dealing with problems and solutions, because, you know, we see what the result is of, you know, women being in charge of the things that's going on right now. We are well intended and we have our heart in it, but men need to be the ones to get up and get the job done. This is ridiculous and it's entirely frustrating. Anyways, sorry, I got distracted. Yeah, anyways, guys, thank you for your time and considerations. We'll check you guys in the next one. And to my dearest Karis, until we meet again, my friend, and we will. Ciao.